Hi everyone, my name is Katie Hirsch and I'm a second-year PhD student at the University of Windsor. Today I am presenting a qualitative investigation of athletes and coaches' perceptions of athlete leader fairness behaviors. This is a proposal of the first study of my dissertation. Before I begin, I would like to thank my advisor, Dr. Todd Lougheed, for his support on this project. To familiarize everyone with athlete leadership, I have provided Lougheed and colleagues' definition here, in which athlete leadership is defined as the process of an athlete occupying a formal or informal role within a team who influences a group of team members to achieve a common goal. Within this definition, two major sources of athlete leadership are highlighted. First, formal leaders, who are athletes on a team who are prescribed or assigned their leadership role by either their teammates or a coach. An example of this would be a captain or an assistant captain. Whereas informal leaders are teammates who develop into their leadership role following interactions with their teammates. An example of this would be a veteran team member. In sport, an under-researched characteristic of leadership is leader fairness. Much of what we currently know about leader fairness stems from organizational psychology, and it's within this setting that fairness has been defined as an individualized perception of an action or statement as appropriate and just according to the standards of a group of people. Scholars in organizational psychology believe that there is an innate bond between leadership and fairness, and that leaders must be fair in order to be effective. Colquitt identified a factor structure of fairness in which it can be displayed in four distinct ways. First, a leader can demonstrate distributive fairness, which is when someone's contribution to a task matches the rewards or consequences that the leader provides them. An example within sport would be a leader praising you after a strong defensive play. Next is procedural fairness, which is when a leader uses appropriate processes to achieve an outcome or reach a conclusion. An example within sport would be a leader deciding that you cannot start or play in a game because you missed a practice that week. Interpersonal fairness is when a leader treats teammates according to the standards of the group, such as encouraging a teammate to keep their head up following causing a turnover. It's important within this example that the leader is mindful of the method of encouragement that they choose to use. For example, harshly yelling at the teammate as a form of encouragement may be perceived to be fair by some teammates, but unfair by others. And lastly, we have informational fairness, which is when a leader explains information and decisions in an honest and candid manner. An example within sport would be a leader explaining what you need to do and improve upon in order to get more playing time. One theory for explaining how we develop and use fairness perceptions is the fairness heuristic theory. And within this theory, individuals undergo a judgment phase, which is demonstrated by the yellow boxes in the slide shown here, and then they undergo a use phase, which is demonstrated by the blue boxes. In the judgment phase, individuals observe other people in order to develop the four different perceptions of fairness. Once they gather those observations and determine their perceptions, they then can collectively take those forms of fairness to develop what's known as a general form of fairness. And this is demonstrated by the middle box in the diagram shown here. Then they undergo the use phase, where they either act within the best interests of the group, which occurs if they deem the actions to be fair, or they act within their own self-interests, which occurs when they deem the actions to be unfair. In the use phase, several outcomes can be achieved, such as those shown here, and many of these hypothesized relationships have been tested within coach literature. However, only a handful of studies have been conducted to date. Given the natural connection between leadership and fairness, Van Nippenberg and colleagues call for more leadership research to consider the impact of fairness and more fairness research to consider the role of leaders. Currently, only quantitative methods have been used to examine fairness in sport, which limits our understanding of what specific behaviors are considered fair or unfair. These studies have focused exclusively on coaches, and these findings may not be generalizable to athlete leaders, especially when considering the different expectations that athletes have of their athlete leaders versus their coaches, and when considering the different types of decisions that both forms of leaders are able to make. Lastly, all of this research examining coaches has examined descriptive fairness, meaning that we understand athletes' perceptions of what coaches are doing that's fair or unfair. And this leaves us uncertain about what types of behaviors leaders are intentionally exhibiting in order to be, or at least appear, more fair. Therefore, more research is warranted that gives us the leader's perspective of fairness. Therefore, the purpose of my study is to determine athletes and coaches' personal meanings and behavioral manifestations of athlete-leader fairness. To do so, I will recruit approximately 8 coaches and 8 athletes who are currently active on an intercollegiate sport team. Athletes will include formal leaders, informal leaders, and non-leaders in order to gather a diverse perspective of leadership behaviors. Coaches will need to have at least 5 or more years of experience at the university level or higher, and they can be currently coaching either an all-male, all-female, or co-ed sport team. Participants will complete a one-on-one interview with me, and topics that will be addressed include their personal definitions of athlete-leader fairness, as well as the importance of athlete-leader fairness, and any behaviors that they believe athlete leaders exhibit that make them fair as well as unfair. Interviews will be transcribed verbatim and then analyzed using reflexive thematic analysis. A mix of inductive and deductive approaches will be used when generating codes and themes from the data. Specifically, a deductive approach will be used that's based off of the 4 forms of fairness and the fairness heuristic theory. Inductive analysis will be used to generate new codes and themes that are unique to athlete leaders and the sport context, which gives us the potential to build upon the current conceptualization of fairness. The findings from this study will help to inform the creation of items for a questionnaire that assesses athlete-leader fairness. Additionally, mental performance consultants can use these findings to develop and implement strategies in order to enhance leader fairness behaviors and give athletes a safer and more optimal sport environment. Thank you for listening, and I will gladly welcome any questions after my presentation, or you can also contact me via email.